So when I was asked to speak, I thought I would just give my normal bio, which is what I normally do when I speak at kind of occasions like this. I talk about my journey because people are curious as to how I got to run the Red Sox Foundation and how I got to run the foundation at the Celtics and how I was a professional athlete. Who gets to do all that, right? But there is no secret sauce. There is no secret magic formula that got me these amazing positions in my life. And as John said, I like to think the best is yet to come for me, so I don't know where I'll be in a couple years, but maybe 15 years, I don't know where I'll be. I will say one thing that does distinguish me, though, I think, having met a lot of people, managed a lot of people, and been around the world, is I am probably the most competitive person you'll meet. My husband does not like that about me, but a lot of people have found that competitiveness is quite helpful through life. I have an intense desire to win, and I think I know where that comes from, and it comes from my family life. I grew up in a very busy, full house of 7 people. I'm the 4th of 5 children. My mom is the oldest of 11 children. All of them were local. I grew up in Cambridge, and so our house was always, always full. There was jostling for airtime and space, and just to be heard was a big effort. And not to mention that my mom is Black and my dad is white. So my mom's family's from Barbados, my dad's family's from Ireland. And so it was this very interesting convergence and mix of culture and ethnicity and language and food, and it was a beautiful thing. But it was hard. It was hard to find your identity in that crazy, chaotic time and space. And so there was love, but there was also dysfunction in many ways. And for me, that played out with a bunch of fears growing up and some anxieties that I still carry to this day. Fears of being judged, fears of not having my parents approve of me, fears of being alone, and fears of being invisible. And so I was fortunate to have been plopped onto a field, probably because my parents didn't have the time to care for all of us. But I started playing soccer at about 4 or 5 years old. And I remember the very first day that I put my feet on a soccer field. It was this intense feeling of freedom. It was this intensity of joy and happiness. And more than anything, it was a space where I felt like I found my voice. I found my identity. It was the one place where people rallied around me instead of me chasing people. It was the one space where I felt I was being recognized and I was receiving accomplishments and kind of the praise that I felt like I deserved. And so I gravitated to sports. I think the best benefit of me participating in sports as a young age is that it started to squash some of these fears and anxieties that I had, and in turn started building up a ton of self-confidence. And I think that's my greatest strength, is my confidence, and I know I can directly correlate that back to my participation in athletics at a young age. And so, I feel very fortunate that I was able to play sports, and I feel more fortunate that I was athletically gifted. I very quickly became pretty good at soccer, basketball, and lacrosse. I was All-American in soccer and lacrosse and All-New England in basketball in high school. And it was one of those things that became just this positive feedback loop. The more I put in, the better I became, and the more recognition I got, and the more my confidence grew. So I gave everything to soccer. I gave everything to sport every single day. Every decision I made, every friend I chose to have, all was based on my participation in sports. I wasn't going out on Friday nights in high school and in college because I had games every single Saturday. And that meant that I was making right choices about what I put into my body. I selected my friends. My mom likes to use the word riffraff. I wasn't hanging out with riffraff, in high school and college because I wanted to be around like-minded people that were as committed to being successful on a field as I was. And certain people have that and certain people don't. And so all of these decisions that I can look back and say that I made then, I didn't really think much of them now, but for the young people here, making decisions like that have long-term consequences are the most important moments in our lives, I believe. And so for me, I can attribute that all back to sports. And so I was very fortunate. Like I said, I was successful in soccer. I went and played at Brown University. And upon graduating in 2001, I was even more fortunate to get a call to go down to a combine in Florida and try out for the newly formed it was WUSA, Women's United Soccer Association, which was the first women's professional league. And I remember going down, I was about 15, maybe 16 pounds overweight, but I was like, whatever, I'll be good. I went down and I did not make the team. It was the first time in my life that Becca didn't make a team. I was always used to being on the team, captaining the team, being the player, and I went down, name wasn't on a roster, name wasn't called back, and it was devastating. I remember in that moment, I was like 21, and I was like, my career is over. I'm never going to play again. And I just remember this kind of sliding door moment of thinking, do I want to continue to follow that dream, or do I give it up? Do I hang up the boots and move on? And clearly was not able to give up my first love of soccer. And so I continued to play semi-pro for a couple years and won 2 national championships with that team, and was fortunate enough to get a phone call from the Boston Breakers to come and play for their team. They played out of BU at the time. They now play over at, well, they're not anymore, but they used to play at Harvard. And so I remember getting a phone call one afternoon, and the next morning I was training on a field with Christine Lilly. And I don't know if anybody knows who Christine Lilly is, but she's one of the greatest all-time players in women's soccer ever. And so I found myself on this field in a very humbling space because, again, having been used to being one of the top players on a team, I was the worst of the worst on the Boston Breakers, and I can say that now. But I was not a starter. I was at the bottom of the barrel on the team, but I was still there. And I still knew that it was a dream that I had my entire life, so I still continued to give it my all. And we ended up winning the league that year, which was tremendous. And after the postseason, when we'd won the league, we'd all sat down after a training session. Our general manager was walking up to us, and I remember like elbowing my teammate and saying, "Oh my God, we're going to get a bonus. It's going to be like $50,000. We won the league." And he came over and quickly burst that bubble by saying that you all are out of jobs, that the WSA is folding, and that every team is closing because there are not enough funds to support women's soccer, women's professional soccer in the United States. And again, devastation is an understatement. I think, every game we sold out in Boston, the market here for soccer was amazing. But it wasn't enough to sustain the league. And so all of those women, all of my teammates at that moment either continued to play if they were on the national or Olympic team, but most of us had to get jobs. And that was when I was thrust into nonprofit work, and I started running a very small nonprofit that married academics with athletics. And for me, that was a no-brainer, right? I'd always kind of combined or had this formula of academics and athletics equals success for me. And so it was a no-brainer to dive into work that did that. What I did not account for was the immediate reward that I felt seeing that tangible action happen with young people, and in seeing that needle move so remarkably, and seeing that transformation in young people, that when you give them that opportunity to participate in sport, yes, I went through it, but I'd never seen it firsthand. And so running a nonprofit that provided access and opportunity to participate in sport, I could see the armor being built around these young people to protect them from their fears, to protect them from their anxieties. And that for me was the most rewarding experience working in nonprofit. And I knew I was hooked. I knew it's where I wanted to be. I will say, though, the difference having worked, like I said, I worked at the Boston Celtics from 2006 through 10 through our championship, and I'm now here running the Red Sox Foundation as executive director. The difference between working in a front office for a professional sports team, as you can imagine, is our brands are our power. Right? I can go anywhere and wear a hat with a B on it, one letter, and people know exactly what that stands for. And people will open the door for me, and people will call me back. And that power as an executive director is so transformative and really at the crux of my success, because I now feel so privileged to have the resources that we have here at the Boston Red Sox and the resources I had at the Celtics, which, as you can see, one of the resources here is Fenway Park. I get to host events in here. I get to have access to players, and there was a player down there, there's a player right there. We get to get these guys and bring them into schools and bring them into hospitals and leverage their celebrity to influence and incent young people to do better in school. We get tickets, we have programming. So all these assets and resources that I can put my hands on and turn that around and dump it into the New England community is really a privilege and something that excites me and drives me every single day. I will say, though, the distinct difference between the Celtics and the Red Sox is Red Sox Nation. They are crazy. I can say without a doubt that we have the greatest fans in all of professional sports. I think coming here, I was not prepared for the craziness, the fierce loyalty, the insatiable appetite that our fans have. They want access to everything, which is great. As an executive director, so much of what I do is put on events here in Fenway Park, or put on events that leverage the team or the ballpark. And every single event we have crazy fans knocking down our door wanting to come. And that's what we want. their support helps generate the revenue that I then turn around and dump back into the community as resources for our young people. And so it's very, very helpful, as crazy as they are, to have Red Sox Nation. And I'm committed to Red Sox Nation, to making sure that they continue to have the access, because I know that's what they want. And so, that was, I think, a growth for me coming to the Red Sox, is I was not prepared for how many fans we have that are at every single game. And we have, what you guys probably know more than I, 100 and something games a season. They are here every game wanting more and more and more and more. So in my position, I really try to leverage that power and that support to do better in the community. And so, moving forward, now that I have young children, I have 3 kids, 1, 3, and 5, which is crazy town, crazy times every single, I'm like blacked out right now. I don't even know what I'm saying because I didn't sleep last night. But having children, I'm even more deeply committed to my cause and my personal mission of giving back, because I can see on my young children the need for that space and that opportunity to grow in their confidence, the need for that space to kill their fears and their anxieties. And so I very intentionally create a household that is free of fear and free of anxiety. And I very intentionally make sure that my children have the space to grow into themselves and to grow their confidence through sports or through arts or for whatever it is. And we all have different needs, and I respect that. But for me here, I think it's making sure that I can take that personal mission that I have for my kids and have that same intensity and same intention and apply it to the young people across New England, because that really is our mission here. And I'll just close by saying that, for me, I'm very much driven again by the need to win, yes, and my competitiveness, but more than that, it is the culture here that has empowered me to continue to chase my dreams. The leadership here at the Red Sox Foundation and the Red Sox really, really are deeply committed to philanthropy and deeply committed to the work that we're doing through the foundation. And so that leadership, coupled with Red Sox Nation, who is not going anywhere clearly, and will be behind supporting the Red Sox Foundation, really is going to infuse my ability to be successful in the New England community. And so I thank you all for being here today. I thank you for this opportunity, and I promise that I will continue to do this work. Thank you.